Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going through my physical TBR on my TBR cart back here, and basically these are all books that I own but I have not yet read, and it's kind of an endless cycle, as a lot of book lovers may know. I do actually keep library books at the top here, so this whole stack at the top are library books, which I just recently shared in my library haul, so I will link that above if you are interested in a breakdown of those books. But today I'll be sharing with you the bottom two shelves, which are books that I actually own that I have not read that I need to get on it. Okay, so the first book we have here is by Daphne du Maurier, one of my favorite more classic writers, and this is the book Jamaica Inn. I've read her book Rebecca, I've read My Cousin Rachel this year, which I really loved, I've read Frenchman's Creek, I've read a bunch of her short stories as well, and I just haven't gotten to this one yet. And this is a pretty classic Daphne du Maurier. Essentially, a young woman named Mary is honoring her mother's dying request, and she's joining her frightened Aunt Patience and large hulking Uncle Joss Merlin at Jamaica Inn. And it's just a very creepy, like haunted kind of place, and there's a lot of like kind of forebodingness to it, and it just kind of sounds like a very psychological, I don't want to say thriller, but a very like suspenseful read is how I would describe a lot of Daphne du Maurier's work, so I'm very excited for that. Next, I have Emma by Jane Austen. I picked this up at a thrift shop for a few dollars a while back, just haven't read it yet. Hot take, I have not read a lot of Jane Austen. I read Pride and Prejudice in high school, but I didn't really love it. Now, it definitely could have just been my age. Maybe I just didn't quite pick up on it. I know a lot of people love that book, but I'm gonna see. The idea of Emma really intrigued me, so I want to give this one a try, see if I have a better experience with Jane Austen. Give it another go. I do really love the Bronte sisters, so I do have the book Shirley here, which I have not read yet, of course, since this is a TBR, and I'm really excited for this. This is supposed to be a really interesting look at like classism and feminism and some different really strong dynamic topics like that, so I'm very excited to read about this. I feel like this has been described to me as a more underrated Bronte sister book that a lot of people maybe don't talk about as much, but it deserves just as much hype, so I'm really excited to check this out. This next one I better read by the end of this year because it's on my 2022 TBR in general, and that is Miss Pinkerton by Mary Roberts Rinehart. My parents got this for me as a birthday gift back in March. This book basically follows Miss Adams, who is a nurse. She's dubbed Miss Pinkerton because she kind of takes on a detective role, but basically there's a suspicious death at a mansion where this man is shot to death, but nobody thinks he actually committed suicide, but the only other person known to be on the premise was his ailing aunt, who's very frail and very unlikely to be the murderer. So a detective asks Miss Adams to arrive on the scene at the mansion and keep her eyes and ears peeled and listen for more information and figure out any information that she can get to that the police maybe don't have the access to, basically. So this is a classic mystery writer that I've been meaning to read for a while. I'm really excited for this. I'm really excited for this. Like, I have a very good feeling about this book and this author in particular, so I'm definitely excited for that. This next one is actually something I'm borrowing from my mom. She recently read it, really liked it, and thought I might like it, and it's called My Name is Eva by Suzanne Goldring. And I haven't read too much about this, but it says on the front, a forbidden secret, a forgotten betrayal, and the promise that cost her everything. So this is like a historical fiction mystery. Essentially, it takes place when the niece of an elderly woman discovers some like kind of interesting photos of her with a different name and some different like interesting things that don't really make sense with the story that she knows about her aunt. Essentially, her aunt had become a widow at a pretty young age, and she had made a promise to her husband that she would find out what happened, like what led to his death. And so she ends up going into a lot of different places where women weren't supposed to be going at the time to try to uncover clues and secrets about who put her husband's life on the line and what happened ultimately. So I'm really intrigued by this. It definitely sounds interesting, and my mom really enjoyed it, and I love historical fiction and like good mystery wrapped into the historical fiction. Next, I have Clara's War, One Girl's Story of Survival by Clara Kramer, and so this is essentially kind of a journal and memoir from a young girl who was hiding during World War II, so kind of in the same vein of the Anne Frank diaries. However, the primary difference with this is that Clara actually survived the war, and she was actually hiding in an underground bunker with 17 other people, which I'm not entirely sure how many people the Franks were hiding with, but I believe it was maybe like 9 people or so in total. Like it was a smaller number. So Clara, when she wrote this, was 15 years old, and she was in the underground bunker for 20 months, and she could actually hear Secret Service agents like drinking and stuff above the underground bunker, which I'm sure would be incredibly anxiety inducing, absolutely terrifying. And so this story is all about her experiences down there with the 17 other people, her survival story, and this is actually featured in the Holocaust Museum as a part of the history of that time period. So I'm really interested in reading this. I do own the Anne Frank diary as well, which I have read several times, and it's definitely a really important historical piece to read, and it's extremely eye-opening. There's nothing quite like that, reading something like that from someone who's so young, and it's such a terrifying situation. So I am really interested to read this one, especially because I haven't personally heard anything about Clara's story before this. So, I mean, let me know if you have, but I previously, before stumbling on this book, had never heard of it, so I'm excited to learn more about it. Okay, so the next book we have is called, this one's not as interesting maybe, it's called The Craft of Research. This is just a book about how to research things online well. This is more of something for my professional life, because I am a professional writer, so this is more something to kind of keep me researching things well, so nothing quite as exciting as maybe the mystery novels. Next this is actually a book written by a YouTuber that I really like. This is called On Writing and World Building, Volume 1 by Timothy Hickson. So this is the front cover here. He does a lot of amazing YouTube videos breaking down different parts of writing fiction and just storytelling in general. It's really fascinating, so I really wanted to pick up his book to support his channel, and because I'm sure it's going to be an amazing resource, so I'm super excited to check that out. So the next one I have is the Bronte sisters, and this is supposed to be a really great overview of the Bronte sisters and their lives, and I'm really excited because the reviews for this described it as very evocative language that read more like a novel rather than a piece of nonfiction, and I really like nonfiction that reads more like fiction, that's like told as a story, because I find it easier to remember and just more entertaining usually. So I'm excited to learn more about the Bronte sisters and their lives. I've watched a documentary, I think, on their lives, but never anything as in-depth as a book, so I'm excited to get into that. The next book we have is another Daphne du Maurier, and that is The Scapegoat. This was one that I got at a used bookstore, so it's actually quite old. It's quite beat up, as you can see from the corners here. Kind of has like a red, like it's been stained on the top part here, but then it's not stained there or on the bottom. I can't really say much about that. There is also no description of what this book is about. I purely picked it up knowing that I love Daphne du Maurier's writing. I actually have no idea what this book is about. And interestingly enough, there's an inscription from 1963 in here, so this is a very old book. I got this book for 25 cents, but this is the book, so I'm quite excited for this. It's a really soft spine, which I like the feeling of. So on the third bottom shelf of my cart, I have most of my mysteries, especially like the cozy mysteries. So we're gonna go and hop into that. I have the Last Suppers by Diane Mott Davidson. This is part of it's a culinary mystery, and she's supposed to be like a very old school, like very famous cozy mystery author from what I understand, but I've never actually read any of her work. This just really stood out to me. I think the cover art for this is just stunning, absolutely stunning. So again, I got this for 25 cents, which I'm really excited for. So in this story, our main character Goldie is just about to get married, and she's actually doing the catering for her own wedding, which that's an ambitious project. So she's just putting the finishing touches on the food for the catering when she actually gets a call from her groom-to-be, her husband-to-be, saying that the wedding is off because he's discovered a murder. He's in law enforcement. As many cozy mysteries have that common trope of the protagonist dating or marrying into law enforcement in some way. and she arrives on the scene to kind of try to help him, to check out what's wrong, because basically the groom had gone to pick up the reverend for their wedding and found him dead. But when she arrives on the scene, her fiance is also missing. So not only is there a murder where the reverend himself is murdered, unfortunately, but her fiance is also missing, and there ends up being like these notes and things that are left behind, like threatening Goldie if she looks into this. So that one, it sounds really gripping. It sounds like a very emotional, personal attack with a murder, so I'm interested in this, and it sounded like a good way for me to kind of check out Diane Mott Davidson. Let me know if you guys are into her writing. I haven't heard or had too many of you recommend her writing to me. I've had a few of you, but let me know if you like her writing. I'd be curious, because I know she is a very prominent, like, widely published cozy mystery author. Okay, so our next one is another book that I got for my birthday. It's called A Play of Piety, a Joliffe the Player mystery by Margaret Fraser. I'm really excited for this one. This one's definitely on my to read hopefully soon. Basically it involves like a hospital, and there's like poisonings, and there's like this really grumpy like widow who's taking advantage of the system there, and she insists that people are being poisoned, they're not just dying suddenly, and that she's next. And it sounds really interesting, and I'm kind of curious about the historical part of this, because this takes place in 1436, so that is the oldest cozy mystery or mystery at all that I will be reading. Like most mysteries that I read that are historical are more like the 1900s, so this will be a big jump for me into a different time period, which I'm really excited for. Next, I have two from the Cupcake Bakery mystery series by Jen McKinley. This is one of my all-time favorite mystery series and one of my all-time favorite cozy mystery authors. These are the covers right here. I've read almost every single one in the series except for these two, which my library just doesn't have. They have every other one in the series but these two, so I ended up picking them up for myself because I wasn't about to miss out on these. So we have Caramel Crush here, which involves, this is a really fun concept. Basically, Mel, who's the owner of Fairy Tale Cupcakes, is contacted by her friend Diane, who is dumping her fiance after discovering he's only marrying her for the money, which, can you imagine? I would be so incredibly insulted. Absolutely insulted. But basically she wants Mel to deliver breakup cupcakes to her fiance that are let him know that he's dumped, it's over, and so Mel agrees to do this for her friend, but when she arrives, the fiance is dead. So that doesn't look very good for her friend, and Mel's there with the breakup cupcakes when the police come, and this isn't looking very good for her friend. So Mel jumps in on the case to figure out what happened. The other one actually involves a high school reunion, which I'm excited for because I feel like I have like a lot of cozy mysteries that take place at like reunions on my to read list, but I haven't actually read any yet. So this will probably be the first one I get to, and I'm just really excited for this because Mel and Angie, who are kind of the two main characters, the story follows Mel, but Angie is her best friend who helps her run the bakery. They're just fantastic characters. They're so well fleshed out. They're interesting. They're entertaining. They're realistic. I love this series. If you haven't checked it out, I would. I don't have enough positive things to say about it. So this one is really interesting. It's called If Looks Could Kill by Kate White, and our main character's name is Bailey, and she is actually a 30-something, single again, Manhattan true crime writer. That already sounds fantastic. I love the true crime writer bit. Basically, she's at home doing her thing when she gets a frantic call from her boss, Kat, because her boss has discovered her nanny is dead in her apartment, or like townhouse, and so Bailey rushes over there, and they think that Kat is actually the intended victim, so they're both very concerned for her safety, and Bailey is kind of up to her nose again in a different mystery, trying to figure out what happened. This is part of it looks like some kind of series, but I haven't read any of these. And this is a really old mystery. I picked this up at a thrift shop. This is actually a 2002 mystery, so it came out quite a while ago. So we're gonna see. I haven't heard anything about this. I don't think this is necessarily a cozy mystery. I think this is just kind of a typical mystery, like not a horror or like a thriller, just a mystery. So I'm excited to see how this book goes. Alright, next I have Curtain by Agatha Christie. This is actually the last in the Hercule Poirot mystery series. One of you actually corrected me on that, so thank you, because for some reason I thought this was book 4 in the series, and have you ever looked back at something and been like, I have no idea where I got to that conclusion? that's how I felt about this. But this is the last one in the Hercule Poirot series by Agatha Christie, which I haven't actually started yet. I'm working on the Miss Marple series right now, as well as And Then There Were None, which I'll link the reading vlog above if you want to check that out, because I just recently read that for the first time, which was definitely a wild ride. And essentially this one takes place where Hercule Poirot returns to the scene of one of his most famous like mysteries before, and he's returning there as like an older man, and it's kind of like his final curtain show. So I'm excited for this. I'm very, very excited for this. This is a really old copy. I got this at my free local little library. This is actually from the Waikiki Kapululu Library from the Hawaii State Library System, and this is a 1975 edition, so it's quite old. It's very, very yellowed, but I'm very excited to read it. Okay, next we have The Queen's Gambit, and this is not the popular Netflix series. I know it has the same name, but this is by Diane A.S. Stuckert, and this is a Leonardo da Vinci mystery series, so this does look like a historical fiction, kind of like cozier mystery series. And essentially, Leonardo da Vinci is called to court, and they are playing, the Duke of Milan has like had them play like a live chess game where the members of the court are actual like the chess pieces on this like giant chessboard, and one of the pieces, one of the people playing in this game is actually murdered. So then Leonardo da Vinci is called upon to investigate the murder, and I just love the concept of this. I really like when historical figures are kind of put in the sleuthing position. I've read ones with like different authors, and I'm kind of excited to check out this Leonardo da Vinci one. So I think this cover is really captures the essence really well, so I'm excited to check this out. Okay, and so this next one is by David Hewson. It's called The Villa of Mysteries. This takes place in Italy. I believe it takes place in modern times, it sounds like. And essentially, the detective Nick Costa, he is out in the middle of Rome when this woman rushes up to him and insists that her 16-year-old daughter has been kidnapped. And so immediately he doesn't say very much because he knows that there's been a recent discovery of a body that kind of meets the physical description of this daughter, unfortunately. So he kind of goes in the case and tries to figure out what exactly has happened. And I'm interested in this because it kind of sounds to me a little bit like Angels and Demons, like the Da Vinci Code, a little bit of that vein with like a little bit of historical mystery kind of delved into it. So I'm really excited to read this. It definitely sounds like a little bit of a darker mystery series. Publishers Weekly said it was atmospheric, steeped in dark ritual. So this sounds like an exciting read. So I'm excited to kind of have this Angels and Demons, Da Vinci Code kind of feeling book at my disposal to check out. Okay, we have just a couple more here. This one I actually also just recently got at my local free little library. It's called Dead and Breakfast by Kate Kingsbury. This is part of the Mary Ghost in Mystery series, and basically it's a grandmother-granddaughter mystery sleuth duo, and the granddaughter has recently gone through a terrible divorce, and the grandmother's like, hey, let's go after our dream and open this bed and breakfast that we've been talking about for a while. So they purchased this place that's purportedly haunted, which I think is going to be fun because it's going to have some kind of supernatural element, I'm assuming, and they're going about their business when they find a body upstairs when they're refurbishing. So of course they call the police, and the police think that the woman they find is actually the previous owner's wife. So that brings up a lot of questions of where is he, what happened, like is it his wife? And they're kind of on the case to clear their names and to figure out what happened to this poor woman. So I'm really excited for this, and the dog, absolutely darling, absolutely love it. And I've heard some really good things about Kate Kingsbury in general, but I've never read her work, so this is definitely exciting. I'm very excited. So this next one is an award-winning book, winner of the Pulitzer Prize. That's also a New York Times bestseller, and that is All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. And essentially this is a historical fiction. It takes place during World War II, and it follows two different characters and kind of how their lives intertwine. So you have Marie-Laure Leblanc, and then you have Werner Penning, who grew up in Germany, and so they are both from different worlds. Marie lives in Paris, and she, grew up with the Nazis occupying the space. Werner is German, so of course he grew up with a very different experience of the war, and somehow their lives intermingle as they move to the same place, and it's kind of supposed to show, as they describe it, it illuminates the ways against all odds that people try to be good to one another. So I'm really excited for this because it sounds like a very optimistic read. It sounds like something we could use more of, honestly, and I'm interested in it. I did start the book, as you can see here, but it was a little bit, I was having like a really stressful week when I started this a few weeks ago, and this book is definitely has a more serious tone. It takes place during World War II. It's a very like heavy read, at least at the beginning from what I was reading, and I was having a hard time getting through it as a result. So that's kind of where I stopped. Alright guys, that is the end of my physical TBR. Let me know if any of these books stood out to you, especially that you want to hear reviews on, or you want me to do like a reading vlog or something on. Let me know if anything stands out to you in particular. And let me know what is on your TBR right now. What have you been putting off reading? I definitely have a lot of these that I'm very excited for, but there's been a few that I've definitely been putting off. And I know I want to read them, but I just need to kind of get there. I need to make myself start reading them. So let me know what that book is for you right now. What are you struggling to read? Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like mysteries, historical fiction, classics. I talk about all that stuff on my channel constantly. I don't want you to miss out, so hit subscribe. I upload videos every single week, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!